Everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It is a new year. Nate and I are back with that fresh content, which means, Nate, we haven't checked in on the weather reports or our gardens for a couple of weeks. So I know people are chomping at the bit to hear what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. Well, how to phrase this? It doesn't really get that cold here, but it gets cold enough, to get below freezing. Like the past couple of days, there's been periods when it's like 1 degree below freezing. And weirdly, inside my garden tent, my peppers not doing so hot. There's one plant that's really big and strong and it's fine. The other ones are kind of withered, but I mean, I think with time, when it gets warmer and more sunlight, they'll probably recover, even if they're going to be like maybe a little bit stunted. But for some reason, parsley and cilantro, which are not covered by a tent, are doing fine. Which I don't know. Like, are perhaps those plants are just way hardier? I have no idea. But you would think that a plant with as thin of stems and such as cilantro or parsley, I mean, they're basically the same plant with just different flavors. You'd think that they would suffer quite a bit when it gets this cold, but they seem to be doing fine. And of course, this being Britain, the weeds are awesome. They're doing great. Like, you'd think, I mean, their growth has stopped, but they have not died off at all. It's genuinely amazing.
Yeah, I suppose as long as you're not hitting like multiple days of below freezing temperatures. Like my outside peppers did fine until we had fine. I mean, they lived until there was until there was a 3 or 4 days of frost in a row, and then they're like, yeah, we're done. Which, to be fair, those pepper plants weren't doing great on their own anyway. I put them in 3-gallon buckets. I should have put them in 5, but I got all plans. I'm going to do hops this year. We're growing hops. I have a south facing wall, so we're trying to save air conditioner money in the summer by growing hops, basically letting them grow up the wall to soak up some of the sunlight that would be hitting that during the summer. So there's a lot of, and then, you can sell the hops if people want to buy them.
I sort of feel like that would be if we bought this place, which is a huge if, because like Lord knows London property is insane. So I don't think that
Patreon.com/ hell of a way to die. So Nate
exactly.
Can buy.
Patreon goals help me buy my house that it just should not be worth as much as London property values assume it's worth. Yeah, it's I would do that because I feel like, I mean, realistically, this is an old building and it has no insulation. I would say, I would want to, we have an exposed wall because it's an end terrace, like we're the last in the row. I would want to just get insulation, outdoor, like exterior insulation installed, but I feel like growing a whole goddamn wall of ivy or something like that would probably piss off my neighbors less than me doing something to improve the house, because I mean, as similarly with doing it, like you can convert a loft in a Victorian house and add a 3rd story. You don't need planning permission from your council to do that, as long as the frontage stays the same, which always makes me laugh because it's a very British notion. It's like, oh, you can do as much as you want as long as the house still looks like fucking shit from the front. You can do whatever you want. You can make it as nice as you want, but don't shame the neighbors by making your house look not complete dog shit from the front.
Especially considering so much of London's infrastructure was built in the like post World War II. It's like I get it. You have some nice things, but it was all hastily built. You can build nice things now. You're probably not going to get bombed by Germans in the next like couple weeks.
This building was pre-World War I. This building was built probably, I think this row was probably built sometime between 1895 and 1910. Just because all of the buildings in this, like in the neighboring blocks, like schools and stuff that have like the year of construction and stuff built on them, will say stuff like 1905 or 1901 or something like that. So this is a full on, I mean, technically, if it's before 1901, then it's technically a Victorian house. And like, as you know from the American version, these houses, they don't have insulation. They are made out of brick and just brick. And some concrete, and that's it.
You know what the insulation was in my fucking house? Like there are times like our main staircase was kind of pulled away from the wall a little bit, so I had to do some fixing there. I was pulling out fucking newspapers from the 1930s, like just crumbling in my fingers.
That the insulation was either newspapers or straw mixed with brick mortar.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
and like no, thinking I oftentimes I was trying to read a book about like surgery during the Victorian era, which is just not something that I can read because I was just clenched the entire time while I was reading it. Because as you can imagine, surgery just 120 years ago was downright frightening. So
yeah, I can only imagine.
So yeah, the props to the people for figuring out how to live, but goddamn, I'm glad I don't have to live like that. Because that old house was fucking super drafty. Like our new house gets cold, but we keep the temperature low because we're cheap bastards and we own sweaters. So
let me ask you a question, actually. So if you had gone through, I mean, because you probably did more consult with like people who did repairs or did repairs on your own. If you fix the what's it called, like the window framing and stuff, and do new windows, does that fix the draftiness, or is it just it's just fucked because it's got no insulation?
Well, the old house that we had suffered from a lot of problems, and not just the issues that come with owning an old house. I mean, it's a house that was built before indoor plumbing, before indoor heating, before any kind of centralized cooling. So it was built to maximize things like it's got transoms, it's got high ceilings, it's got big windows, it's got all these things. And yes, like newer windows do help that, but the thing is that there's so much space inside. Like right now in my office at my current house, it's small. It's, I don't know, maybe like 10 by 12. It's got a ceiling that if I, do a slight hop, I can touch the ceiling. Like, it's a normal size room. And you got to think in my old house, it was twice the size and 12-foot high ceilings. And so you have absolutely you have draftiness because, when the wind blows, there's just cracks in the whole place, but also you just have to, there's so much space to heat and cool that's where your biggest energy costs come from. I'm very glad we got out of that house before COVID really hit because we would not be able to afford it. Just energy bill wise, like we already saved like $200 a month not being in that house. I mean, you got to think we went from 3,000 square feet down to 1,100, and that's floor footage, but we also don't have a second floor anymore. We don't have massive rooms that we're not using anymore. We don't have 12-foot high ceilings. So it's definitely like it is a drafty house, and you can do a lot to lock it down to really like button it up. And we did. We had thermal curtains that kept heat in, but also were white on the outside, so it reflected heat out. So you could keep it, it helped keep you cool during the summer and warm during the winter. But like at a certain point, like when it's 100 degrees outside or when it's 10 degrees outside, there's like only so much that you can do. So if like I plunked that house down in London, I bet it'd be perfectly fine because it doesn't seem that it gets like real wonky weather. Like it does, but not like it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't. I've never
have 10
seen
degrees for a week and a half in London.
No, I mean you can. That has happened in the past, but it's very rare. And like the whole country shuts down when that happens.
Right.
It gets into the 20s in the winter. In the summer, it's getting to the point where in Fahrenheit, it's getting into the high 90s. That fucking sucks, but it doesn't really last that long. And also a big thing that's different than America in my experience here is that when it gets that hot, it still gets below 70 at night. Like sometimes you'll have a day here where it's in the 90s at the hottest time of day, and by 2 or 3 in the morning, it's like 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Like, which, I mean, just from my experience in America, like living in places like North Carolina and Georgia and Indiana even, if it's getting above 90 in the daytime, it's probably not getting below 70 at night.
Yeah.
And so, like, just having it cool down. Yeah, having it cool down enough, it actually, like, it's bad, don't get me wrong, I mean, it fucking sucks. And, like, if we did buy this place, eventually we'd probably just buy a ductless mini split air conditioner. But
those things are goddamn beautiful. I love them.
They're badass. I actually had one in New York, and they rule. Yeah, and so, but my God, dude, I'm not like the biggest thing here is just it's really windy, and this house is so old, and so when it's cold and windy, like if you're near the window, you can feel like the suction, just pulling the heat out of the house. And I mean, utilities are probably about the same, if not a little cheaper here overall. But I mean, it was a shock going from 500 square feet to about 1,200 square feet from a council estate built in the 70s to this building built in the 1900s. In the sense that all of a sudden, in the old place, we didn't pay for heat or hot water. And here we have to pay the gas bill for heating the hot water for the radiators and for the hot water tank for like showers and baths and stuff. And so, yeah, man, like our power and utility bill went from like 40 or 50 pounds a month to like 200 pounds a month, which is fucking sucks. Don't get me wrong. Like on top of the increase in rent, we don't keep the house that hot. That's the fucking thing. We don't at all. But like no joke, in wintertime, our power bill, our combined utility bill will be like 250 pounds when you combine gas and heat and water. And then in summer it'll be like 60 pounds.
The worst thing that we did, which is really the best thing, we got a Nest thermostat in the new house, and because we got it for free, and it's part of like Ameren has this thing where they're like, look, we'll give you the Nest for free if you connect the Nest to us, and we will like. The idea is to save energy during like peak times. They'll pre-warm or pre-cool your house for you. So it's like, look, we're gonna say, look, we know that it's gonna get really hot later today, so we're gonna kick your air conditioning on a little bit early for you. And it's like and it's we are going to tell you, we're going to ask your permission before we do it, and if there's any changes, it's going to be a degree or two, and you have full right to go and override it on your own. So it's not like we're just like, here, electric company, do whatever you want. And but if it did come down to that, I do have the old one to slap it back up there to be like, fuck you, get off my internet. But the Nest, like my wife brings it up on the app, and my wife is very we joke about it. She's very reward driven. Like with if there's a game that gives you like little badges, she's going to be all about it. Yeah. So like the Nest gives you like little leaves when you're doing really well on your electricity bills. So you know, the trope is that as the dad, I'm the one that's supposed to be going around yelling about the lights, but it's always my wife because she's just like, we got to get our usage down. Look at it. We're spiking. We got to go turn off all the lights. Like, fucking fine.
Well, so, I mean, the Nest is, if I'm not mistaken, another Amazon device owned, financed, etc. by Jeff Bezos. And speaking of things that are owned and financed by Jeff Bezos, it seems that Democrats have taken back the Senate, sort of. That basically the vice president will cast the deciding vote if you can convince all the right-wing Democrats to vote on something, which, I mean, good luck with that, because you've got Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, so they're just going to become Republicans. But anyway, as of this morning, I woke up to the surprise news that both Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff have appeared to win their Senate elections, defeating Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue to become Democratic senators from Georgia. And if I'm not mistaken, Raphael Warnock is only the second black senator ever from the South since Reconstruction or since the Civil War. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the only other one is Tim Scott, a Republican from South Carolina, who, I believe he may have been appointed or because of a vacancy in South Carolina and then won re-election. So Raphael Warnock is the first black senator, as I understand it, to win in the South, through the system without being appointed beforehand, and the second ever, and I believe the first black senator from Georgia ever. So wild stuff. Once again, actually doing turnout apparently matters. But there's a whole other thing, and there's just going to be incredible cringe posting about Stacey Abrams, and
already is.
Yeah,
it's already out there.
Yeah, already, just everyone's just being the dad from fucking Get Out. But
which is not to disparage Stacey Abrams and a lot of organizers on the ground in Georgia. Yeah. Made this happen.
She always, for all of her faults, let's just say bad judgment with regard to the whole Mike Bloomberg thing, she always makes it a point to play down her own personal involvement and speak up on behalf of all of these, smaller organizations and organizers that have worked to support this goal. So, I mean, I don't even want to Stacey Abrams is one of those people where she's done a lot of really amazing stuff, and you also just have to judge her as the person she is. And I think hilariously, the people who seem to be the best at that are, because the white liberal conception of this is that, basically anyone who criticizes or asks for a full picture of an organizer like Stacey Abrams is somehow motivated by some kind of racial bias. Whereas, in my opinion, the strongest criticisms and the most frank and I feel objective and well-rounded criticisms I've seen of her have come from black organizers also in the South. But they also make the point that she tries to lift up everyone with her. And so I'm really impressed by the work she's done in Georgia. Obviously, having lived in Georgia before and having seen, post 2008, post, souls to the polls and stuff like that, the way that Georgia cracked down on any voting rights organizations, they sentenced people to felonies for driving people to polls in 2010 and beyond, to get revenge for Obama winning the presidential election. I can't recall if he won Georgia, the state, in 2008 or not. I think he probably did. I mean, I could Wikipedia this, but I'm speaking off the cuff here. Obviously, he won Indiana, so who even knows? But basically, the South went in full revolt. The white reactionary establishment went into full revolt. And, they basically tried to make it illegal for black people to vote, and they introduced voting ID laws. I remember seeing those go into effect when I lived in Georgia. It was wild across the board. And so to see this happen, in the span of 10 years, really, because I mean the Tea Party kind of first wave of reaction was 2010, and to see this turn around in 10 years is incredible.
It was wild to see the Tea Party. Like, I remember the Tea Party in 2010. I never would have predicted. Like, I don't know anybody that would have predicted, and that's going to lead to a Trump fucking presidency, who will in effect be so bad that he ends up losing every aspect of the government, which is not to say by much. Like,
of course not. No,
the Ossoff, the Ossoff race is still contested.
I mean, so far
ahead,
he's won. So far he's ahead by more than Biden won the state of Georgia by, right. But still.
And Warnock was behind by 10 points until the WNBA team that Loeffler is half owner in was so pissed off at her because she's, an unrepentant racist. They went to bat for Warnock and got him, but he still won by 0.4. So, look, electoral politics is fun and all, but you got to understand that, like, when you're winning by these margins, you're not really controlling anything.
And I believe there was something like there was a state Republican who won re-election. I think it was something for like public funds or something along those lines, but on a sort of normal Republican, not batshit fucking, drink my own piss to stop the fucking lizard conspiracy level of crazy. And that person won re-election. So in a way, you're in a situation where it's like, I do think that the complete freak out on the part of the Republicans has turned some people away. I think that better organizing among people who are not politicized and who are not regular voters has helped a lot. The problem now, obviously, is, well, the Democrats have to govern, and you've got.
Hey man, Biden promised me $2,000 if Georgia won. So
you've got austerity hawks like Biden, who don't want to help and don't want to spend money and don't want to do anything in charge. And now the Democrats have to govern, but also they have to govern with at least 2 senators who are basically Republicans. And we don't even know if they're going to break the fucking filibuster. That's the thing. The Democrats are complete losers. Like that given the control of the House, control of the Senate, and control of the presidency, they will find a way to be like, oh, we would help if we could, but they just won't let us. Like, God, it's incredible stuff.
Right.
So that's going to happen.
Do it and you piss on people who tell you that you can't do it. Like, just I really wish, like, because I don't care anymore about any of this, and I just really wish that I would start caring if Democrats were just as pushy and shitheaded as the Republicans were, because at least, like, you would have, even for their goofy austerity politics, like, at least fight for it and don't just be like, well, we have to restrict abortion more to get like a 2% tax break for tech companies in the Rust Belt. This is the compromises
exactly.
that the Democrats have brought for you.
Cynthia told me this morning that Ossoff and Warnock had won, and I was really happy. And I thought to myself, I was like, well, what is this actually going to mean? I'm like, well, I think we're going to get more Republican judges in exchange for more federal buildings named after John McCain. So, it's like, I obviously I'm happy. I'm much happier that the Republicans didn't hold the Senate. But you have to be sanguine about this stuff. That this is a question of. The Democrats had an unbelievable amount of power in 2010, and they just frittered it away. They could have broken the filibuster and passed, the what's called the Affordable Care Act with a public option. They could have gone way more aggressive in terms of having guaranteed public health care. They didn't. They didn't.
Yeah, we're getting Obama 2.0. You're having the executive, the legislative delivered to you to Obama's fucking vice president.
But also bear in mind that Obama's vice president, Joe Biden, was picked specifically as a sop to the conservative wing of the party. People were convinced that Obama was like, fucking this, that he was, like a Marxist radical who was going to upend everything about America. And so they're like, well, what if we put a segregationist old white guy as vice president? And that's what they did. So the
Nate,
fact
are you telling me that the Lincoln Project wouldn't have gone to bat as hard for Bernie Sanders as they would have for basically Republican light?
Dude, if Bernie Sanders had won the nomination, the Lincoln Project would have rebranded as basically a thing to pipe stories of Nicaraguans who claim to have been fucking dispossessed by socialism nonstop. Because the one thing where Bernie Sanders was really involved publicly as a public elected official in any kind of pro-left thing, that has cachet with American bloodthirst was his support for self-determination and social justice in Central America in the 1970s and 1980s. I think by then he was the mayor of Burlington. And so, he did sort of outreach things, both with the Soviet Union and also with the Nicaraguan government under the Sandinistas. And most Americans couldn't tell you what the fuck Nicaragua is, much less the Sandinistas. But the Lincoln Project would absolutely have ensured that you thought that Bernie Sanders wanted to do Pol Pot communism, all across America, because he said it's bad that we're blowing up civilian fishing vessels, in Nicaragua's harbors. But I mean,
killing civilians is bad, but you can't say that. You can't say that.
We might not be in the right here when we're dumping military support and economic resources towards government in El Salvador that its soldiers raped and murdered 4 American citizens who were nuns. Like,
and I had a El Salvadorian gal in my unit one time, and she did not get along with her parents because her parents remembered America. And she told me, she's like, she joined the army because she didn't really have anywhere else to go with it, and her parents were not happy about that.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you something, man. I mean, I've told this story a couple of times, I think, before on other shows, so forgive me if I'm having another dad moment here, but when I was in the army, when I was stationed in Honduras, we did a mission in El Salvador to do, like med caps. Like, what I later realized these were supposedly like, we're going to go and do medical assistance things, do free clinics and stuff in rural villages. And really what it comes down to is this was an opportunity for, they did those things and they brought along randomly a bunch of SF guys and Salvadorian SF guys because they were doing basically like informal recon of areas where
right. It's easier to go in with the people who are giving everybody aspirin. Hey,
and nothing but aspirin.
how's that working for polio rates in Pakistan, y'all?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and one of the weirdest things was in El Salvador, and we didn't do this in Honduras, but in El Salvador, the military insisted on bringing clowns along. I'm not joking. They brought military performing clowns because apparently warming up the village crowd with clowns was a way of getting them to trust. I don't know. It was some weird specific Salvadorian thing.
I get it. Like you want the kids to feel at ease. You bring something to keep them safe. Yeah. But like so I understand that. But also like knowing the United States and knowing how all of this works, I don't trust it, and neither should any of the rest of you.
But that's the thing too, is that in at this place at Ilopango Airfield in San Salvador, this was I remember Googling it after the fact and learning that like this was a place where the U.S. was doing it, and I'm not exaggerating. This was sold to Time Magazine in 1981. They'd sent U.S. military advisors down there to do human rights training. But then at Ilopango, I remember going running because I was getting ready to go to a Special Forces selection, and I went running. There was like a 5-mile course you could do around the airfield and the full sort of extremity of the base, and you saw this like aircraft graveyard of AH-1s, which are Cobras, and they all had California National Guard markings on them, and they were all pretty old and pretty beat up. And they still had those markings on them, so I feel like it's safe to say that, at the time, this would have been 20 years after some of the worst violence of the Salvadoran Civil War. It's safe to assume that when those helicopters were strafing villages that they thought were friendly to the FMLN, that they still had California National Guard written on them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so, never mind the fact that El Salvador is not even particularly big as a destination country for drug trafficking. I mean, because most of the drug trafficking goes through northern Honduras and then into Guatemala and then into Mexico. But El Salvador has, this incredibly unequal economy and this huge gang problem. And most of the gang problem is, as I understand it, is basically a lot of the gang structure were people who were just sort of arbitrarily deported from California or from the western United States back to El Salvador when the U.S. started cracking down on Salvadorian migrants who had fled the war where we were supporting the military government that was doing war crimes. And now, like I said, like if you hear about Mara Salvatrucha or, I mean, the thing about it is MS-13 is like one of many in that area. If you hear about these gangs and like the crazy levels of violence that people experience in Central America, like a lot of that is a consequence of the U.S. And, people want to be like, get mad at us for bringing this up like we're always talking down America. But people who actually understand anything about the region, people who live in the region, people who experience this stuff on a day-to-day basis, they aren't they don't have any illusions about how this stuff has gone down and how it's worked. And
look, they don't have a podcast, so we got to talk about it.
Fuck, man, I don't feel that way. I mean, it's more along the lines of, we love to tell ourselves these stories about, like why we should why America's so goddamn great, why it's so gosh darn good. Even when we make mistakes, we're trying really hard. And, it's like I said, I mean, you go to fucking El Salvador and you see it's like, well, America's priority was apparently giving, attack helicopters to the Salvadorian military so they could just war crime the shit out of everybody. And we act surprised when people flee Central America and want to come here. And we also act surprised that like people on the left in America who were, politically conscious and active in the 80s were opposing this shit. Like you get surprised that Bernie Sanders was like, what, who the fuck? Come on, man. Like the Reagan administration basically, I don't know, surprise here. They sold fucking weapons via the Israelis to Iran to create slush funds because they said, no, Congress is full of libs and the libs aren't allowed to tell us what to do. So they could continue to fund death squads in Central America, even when the political system in the United States said you are forbidden from funding death squads in Central America. Like, this was a big thing on the left, and now it's memory hold. So this has been a long tangent on my part mostly about, yes, I assure you the Lincoln Project would have gone after Bernie Sanders about that shit, and the Democratic Party would have supported it because those people, the ones who were around back then, never really believed in stopping this stuff in the first place. They were bigger fans of Reaganism than they wanted to admit. And the ones who were younger are just, McKinsey MBA brained into believing that all that stuff was just America being so gosh darn good that they have no idea what the fuck any of it even meant in the first place. So all they hear is, wait. The FMLN were communist? They were socialist? And, they're like,
they're bad then.
Ooh, neutron bomb, burn it all to the ground. Ooh, yikes, I don't want that. Like it's just, so, yeah, it's grim. And so, the guy who was opposing busing in the 70s and the guy who, I mean, I don't know enough about Biden's record, but I can guess, given Biden's politics, what side he probably was on, with regard to socialist insurgencies or socialist governments in fucking Central America in the early 80s. It's not good. It's not good at all.
Yeah, you don't got to dig deep for that one to kind of figure out like, oh, I'm sure he was a shithead just like all the rest of them.
Well, he's a shithead now. He was one of the biggest proponents of the Iraq War. Like, do you really think that he went through a weird fucking long-haired streak where he decided he's like, actually no, I believe in liberation theology and the people's freedom to fucking, achieve social justice in their home countries. Like, of course not. Don't fucking lie to yourself.
Well,
it would be kind of cool if he was into liberation theology, honestly, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't think he's mellowed with age. He's probably just become. He's probably like me. I've gotten much more lefty and chill in my old 37-year-old age, but I don't think I'm pretty sure Biden's just going to double down. And it's fun to watch Trump lose after all of this. Like that's. I don't hold out much hope for the next 4, 8, 12 or however many years we're going to continue to be a nation, but it is fun to watch just a huge man baby episode. And it's fun to watch Proud Boys get their shit caved in by DC cops for once. You know, that was fun to watch yesterday.
I mean, it's one of those things where our official position as a podcast has been and remains to be: we are not excited about Biden winning, but we are excited about Trump losing. That
it's just
to me
so
is
funny.
fun.
It's so funny.
Well, also, it's hilarious to me. It's just like the Republicans genuinely could have. The guaranteed way to win was just give people money for once in your goddamn life. Stop giving trillions of dollars to like fucking golf jet ski people, and instead give some money to Americans during like a once in a century crisis. If they had just done that, I mean, they almost won. If they had just done that, they absolutely would have won. They would have won the presidency. They would have done better in the House, and they would have won the Senate, or kept the Senate rather. And, they could have just continued being fucking assholes forever. And the Democrats would roll with it. They would cave because that's what they're there to do, is to cave. And the Republicans couldn't do it. Like, ideologically, they are so into the idea that, like, there cannot be any state besides cops, and, like, the government exists to basically not do anything for anybody except make sure that the people who give them money are allowed to have monopolies. Like, it's embarrassing, but their own ideology, man, like they had an opportunity to just pretend to care for once, and it would make so little of a difference in the grand scheme of things, given their ability to keep giving their donors what they want. And they were like, no, we refuse. Like, imagine the Democrats having 1/1,000,000th of that ideological consistency. Like, wait a minute, they do. It's called the same thing.
it absolutely kills me that, like, like you said, it would have been easy just to go to all of your Republican investors and just be like, look, we're going to give these guys, we're going to just fucking dole out a lot of money. We've already given you a big tax cut. But what this is going to do is this is going to solidify Republican control, because Republicans would have controlled everything. If this, like, and this is something for all of those people who are celebrating, you need to understand the only reason Democrats are in power is because there's a fucking uncontrolled pandemic that was so stupidly handled. Like, if Republicans had shown any amount of competency, if there had been a shutdown and payment and a let's get this all under control and let's all wear masks, Republicans would be running things for the next 10 years. Like, we'd have Baron Trump 2048, man. Like it would be.
Man, I mean, genuinely, if you look at countries that have done well, like Australia, for example,
Vietnam.
I mean, Australia is a right-wing country right now. Like, Australia, their sort of Overton window is to the left of ours, but not by much. And, they despite total mismanagement and corruption, stupidity on the part of their coalition government, they basically were able to convince Australian voters to not vote for their Labour Party, who were right-wing social democrats at best, by basically making the argument that these people want electric cars in Australia. Electric cars take too long to charge. They want to take away the weekend, because your weekend is going to be spent charging your electric car. And Australians are like, oh, that sounds like fucking garbage. And they voted in the right-wingers again. And then the right-wingers are like, let's keep selling coal. By the way, the whole country is on fire. Doesn't matter. We're going to keep selling coal nonstop because we fucking love coal. Like, they are more into, like, big, beautiful coal than Donald Trump is even. And yet even a country that fucking stupid, run by complete morons, was able to say, we should at least determine if the people flying into the country have COVID, and we should introduce mandatory quarantines and masks, and give people support while they're sheltering. And like, if you look at people's timelines in Australia, they're like going out and fucking having a good old time because there's no community transmission, or very little. Same with New Zealand, same with Vietnam, same with Taiwan. And you know what? Like, I wish I lived in fucking Taiwan. I would, God, send me to fucking Taiwan, dude. I'll go to fucking language school and I'll learn Mandarin. I don't care. Send me to fucking Taiwan. Please, God. Like,
yeah, go somewhere, anywhere. I just want to go get some street food and not have to wear a mask, y'all. Like, and that's.
I don't even mind wearing a fucking mask. I just want to not be governed by complete idiots. I just want to be like, I don't want to live in a fucking country where, like, in the face of the worst economic crisis in the entire developed world, one of the worst death rates in the world, the worst death rate in Europe, I live in a country where, like, their priorities are like, white children in the north are not learning to read because they're learning too much about feminism. Like, that's genuinely what's what they fucking said. The government said that. Not a fucking pundit. Not some dumbass with a blog or a podcast like me. The fucking government equalities minister said that. Like, that's why. Send me to fucking Taiwan. Go fund me, relocate the podcast to fucking Taiwan. I'll learn Mandarin. I don't give a shit.
I'm not going to learn Mandarin, but I'll go live with Nate while he learns it, and we'll go get some street food, and we'll be fine, hopefully. Yeah, man, it's all weird and fucked. And that's why, I don't know, man. That's why we love it. I gotta say, big fan yesterday of seeing a lot of Ossoff's nerd ass tweets. My favorite being one from 2012 where he's tweeting at Star Wars if Episode 7 is going to be the Thrawn trilogy, which 100% behind you on this one. And I would say that that now that we have a senator, we can have that. But Mandalorian is already kind of going that way because the Mandalorian is 5 years after the Battle of Yavin. So and the Thrawn trilogy also took. I'm gonna be a nerd here for a minute. So the Thrawn trilogy also took place after that, and the Thrawn trilogy is really where a lot of the not only the extended universe, but a lot of the characters, Mara Jade, even the planet Coruscant got its name from this trilogy. So it's a very important trilogy. And I'm with John Ossoff in that we really need to have a treatment of 3 movies. And honestly, I would say probably about 6, to be perfectly honest with you, because those are some dense books. And if we're not going to really investigate the Luke Skywalker Mara Jade relationship, it's just not fucking worth it. So don't do it. So Ossoff, maybe next time clear things up a little bit. But heart's in the right place. I do love to see a person that uses Twitter for like the most benign bullshit ever. Like, unlike us, who are just like think that every tweet is important, and this guy's just like, I want to watch some Star Wars. And it's just so it's beautiful to watch sometimes. It's beautiful to see such a I don't know, a pure Twitter soul. It's not pure anymore, but once upon a time it was.
Yeah, I mean, he also, like I said, I saw his podcaster tweets, and I was just like, he's coming for us. He's gonna fucking make us illegal. He's gonna make us have to stay on topic. That'll never happen. I'm sorry.
Do you remember Kyle, whoever, one of the kids that was in which school shooting was it? The one where David Hogg became a noted person.
It was in Florida. Oh, I can't remember.
Can't remember my school shootings. Anyway, there was a conservative that came out, conservative dipshit kid that came out from that too. Kyle something or other. And I remember one of his tweets as being like, why does anybody listen to music? You could be learning by listening to podcasts. And I was like, yes, that's true. You should be listening to a bunch of dumbasses with microphones instead of listening to music.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that why listen to someone making art with musical instruments and singing when you could listen to us not being able to remember the name of the really, really famous school shooting, the one school shooting people really cared about in the last 10 years besides fucking Sandy Hook, because it took place in a wealthy white school district. It also did give us David Hogg and the weird Republican obsession with him, and the people who were constantly talking about how I need to spank Hogg, I'm spanking the Hogg and whatnot, or they're doing like a thing called...
Does he have pubic hair? Like,
yeah,
Republicans are really weird.
Hashtag Hogg Watch. That was just like, all right, y'all, do what you want to do, but a bit much there. So, yeah.
Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. This dude can't even drink yet. He's only 20. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Everybody be
right.
older, please, because I am.
Yeah,
Stoneman Douglas High School shooting.
That's right. Yeah, and the guy who did it was like a MAGA weirdo. Yeah, I remember. God, it feels like so long ago, and yet it was 3-4 years ago, maybe. I mean, it was 2017, I think, if I recall.
2018.
Jesus, yeah, it doesn't even seem that long ago. But fuck, you know what? Our brains have been cooked into ramen noodles by this last 4 years.
Oh God! Like, there really should have been a much more conscious collective imprint after there was a fucking VBID in Tennessee on Christmas Day that like leveled a city block, but everybody's just like, I mean, nobody died, so it's whatever.
Like, well, the dude who did it died, and so they're like, well, okay, but I mean, Yeah, it is wild to me. I just here's my thing, right? I understand why people who are, because of their religion or ethnicity or race are constantly being fucking accused of being terrorists and being harassed by every apparatus of the state. I absolutely understand why they want to see the description of terrorist or domestic terrorist applied. I get it. And like I'm a little bit less swayed when it's just white people who are really, like who are libs and are really mad at Democrats and whatnot, or correction, really mad at Republicans and et cetera, because I feel like I don't think the solution to America's, war on terror freakout is to expand the panopticon even further. But I get the argument. Like, even if I don't really agree with it, I do think that we as a nation, we as people in the West in general, in the English-speaking world, should be a lot more circumspect about how fucking violent and insane right-wing terrorists are and how they are the fucking domestic terrorist threat. Like that is the threat, I get the argument, but the thing I would say is that I just don't understand, because if God fucking forbid that RV bomb had been, a left-winger, it had been the dreaded Antifa. Can you fucking imagine? Can you imagine? Oh my God. God. Can you fucking imagine what that would have been like?
Dude, right wingers still bring up like the Bernie supporter that shot up the baseball game like a few years back. He didn't even kill anybody, man.
I know. And you know what? Man, fucking go to the zero range first. Jesus Christ. You can't even... How are you going to buy an M4, an AR-15, and you're not going to fucking zero it?
Dude, this is how most, like, I'm in a chat of gun enthusiasts and we talk about, going to the range, but like there are so many people who like, you see people like, yeah, I own like these, 20 rifles. It's like, seriously, you spent time zeroing each one of these at like 100 meters? Have you like, it's like I've set up all these things around my house to shoot people that come in. It's like, okay, but do you have range markers anyway? Like, what do you do? Do you know how? Most people with guns, I'm convinced, don't actually know how to shoot a gun.
Well, that's the thing too. It's like, are you doing like fucking anything to be good marksman, or are you just assuming that you're going to win by shooting people at point blank range? Because I mean, I had this notion the other day. I was like, I remember when I was a lib. I mean, when I was in the army, because I couldn't really be a leftist, could I? And I remember having this argument with someone. I was like, honestly, if you federalized gun laws and you basically made it like getting a driver's license, I wouldn't see any. I think that would be satisfactory to prevent a lot of the problems that people have. I mean, obviously, like it wouldn't solve everything, but it would solve most of it, or a significant chunk of it. And in a way, like I still believe that. I mean, I'm obviously way distrustful of anything the government does at this point, but I think that a solution could be a system that makes it so you have to at least demonstrate that you know what you're doing, and like you can figure out how you want to fucking do that. I don't know, because the thought crossed my mind. I'm like, maybe that sounds insane, maybe that sounds unworkable. But then I was like, what if you took that same approach that we have towards guns and applied it towards cars? And it's like, I've never driven a car in my life, but but I'm gonna buy this like it basically like enormous roller skate with a 50 cal on it. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, like this is my this is me expressing my constitutional rights. Like,
well, you can buy a car without a driver's license. I'm pretty sure. I mean,
they just fucking drive it. Also, I mean, you can technically buy a car without a driver's license, but I mean, you can't. I don't think you can.
Right, you can't legally. You can't operate it.
You can't operate it. Yeah.
Dude, last time I went and bought a gun, when I went and bought my Glock, the guy at Bass Pro that I was buying it from, like, he got it. We did the paperwork, we did the money and everything, and he's like, okay, do you need me to show you how to use this? I'm like, first off, it's a Glock. I'm not a baby, so no. But secondly, who the fuck is coming in here and buying? You know what? I don't need to ask that question, because that's just gonna fucking frighten me. That people are coming in here buying a gun and then asking you, how do I use this? Because that is, like, and look, everybody needs to learn. If you're gonna buy a gun. Certainly, but like you should have done the learning before you showed up at Bass Pro and dropped $600 on a fucking Glock or a Beretta or whatever. So it's I'm with you. Like gun laws are, especially in Missouri, man. Like I love it. I love it because I am a gun enthusiast and because I keep all of my things locked up and I take them to the range safely and I discuss things like, pattern shooting and, sub MOA shooting and things like that because I like those things because it's a hobby. But goddamn, there are just too many fucking wackos with too many guns that don't know what they're doing with them. And I don't know. How was New Year's for you guys? Because it sounded like a fucking war zone for me.
Yeah, I mean, they shoot off fireworks, but no guns that I'm aware of.
Nobody's got guns there. That's all I want, man. I would just love, I'd love to live somewhere where I don't hear gunshots on a regular fucking basis, man. And St. Louis is just, I'm sure I can't afford to live in the places where that doesn't happen in St. Louis, but also St. Louis is just a very shooty state. Or city.
I was just laughing because there was this tweet from one of the Greater London town's police department. They're like, we arrested somebody, on weapons charges, and they had the evidence photo, and there were 2 or 3 handguns, 1 or 2 what looked like low caliber long guns, and then 25 swords, and some of them looked like fucking those Air Force anime swords. And I just remember seeing that. Wow. Well, I'm that's a big haul. I assume you guys charge whoever owns these with being a badass, because one of them literally looked like the Buster Sword from Final Fantasy. It's unreal. But yeah, that's the situation you're in. There is violence here. There are guns here. There are shootings here, but they're very rare because the cost of getting a gun is so high, and going shooting is a very upper class pursuit. And some people do own guns, but most people, as I understand it, will just go to a shooting club. They're a member of a shooting club and they have an arms room there. Which different approach to things, I suppose. It's just, but it is weird because I was promised that if I lived in a country with no, guaranteed at birth the right to own a fucking, AR-15, that I would be living in Venezuela, Cuba, Stalinism, or Hitler's Germany or whatever. And actually, it's just not the case. Do people do robberies? Yeah, they use knives or they use guns if they've got them, or they use replica guns. I was at a post office the other day mailing out Trash Future shirts, and they were doing a cash pickup. And because armored car drivers can't carry guns here, when the armored car drivers come in, it's hilarious because they're dressed like fucking RoboCop. They've got riot helmets on and body armor and knee pads and elbow pads and stuff. And they carry a metal briefcase. And in some cases, I've seen the metal briefcase with handcuffs on it, handcuffing it to their wrist. It's unreal. But they can't shoot back, but also they're not really worried about getting shot either. You know what I mean?
I love that. I love that your security is basically what if we watched the movie Snatch and did that? Oi, mate, get the handcuffs.
Francis, your British accents or your English accents are getting better. Maybe at the 10-year mark of this show, you'll be able to convincingly pull one off. But yeah, it's just, I like living in a place where I don't have to worry about getting fucking shot. I like living in a place where if we have kids and send them to school, we don't have to do active shooter drills and shit. Obviously, you deal with state racism and the hollowing out of all fucking state capacity, but you deal with that in America too. It's just, there's just no guns here, or far fewer guns. But the idea that there aren't any shootings, of course there are, but the gun nut argument in America is that it would be a free for all here, and that's just not the case. One time London had a really bad year for murders, and it had a murder rate as high as New York City, the city in America with probably the lowest murder rate.
I was gonna say my murder rate is in St. Louis is way higher. We just hit 50-year high. So if you wanna do some murder, come here, because we also don't solve the murders. So.
Jesus Christ. Well, Francis, you guys did a bonus episode that's kind of similar to this episode in the sense that it's a little more free flowing.
It is. There's a lot of army stuff. We could have gotten into Robert Bales, but nobody wants to. But fuck that guy. We don't need to just sit here and be angry about him. But if you want to listen to some of that, I am uploading videos to YouTube of me talking about current events and also reading from underground GI newspapers from the Vietnam era, which is a lot of fun. So go check us out on YouTube for that. But as always, I have Joe and Carrie Shockey coming on to talk just bullshit, man. Sometimes it's fun to just sit around and bullshit like we're doing right now. It's been a while, so please enjoy.
You say that though, and like in New England though, New Hampshire is really the one you got to watch out for.
It's full of weird libertarians.
Yeah, like Maine is
That's
just
where
kind of like
the whole libertarian project is.
Yeah, like the Free State Project. Like
that's right. Yeah,
Maine is like definitely like backwoods, and there's like parts of it that are like straight up just entirely unincorporated, which like in New England is pretty rare because pretty much everywhere is like either like there's almost no unincorporated land, but there's enough places in Maine that have lost population that they've just entirely given up. Like the only government there is like state government. Like I don't even think there's really county government. Like it's just almost entirely like, you know, ungoverned. And like so there is that, but like they're just kind of Mainers. Like New Hampshire is like definitely like the like where you get like not only the crazy but the crazy weird. Like it's like a separate thing. And like similar to what Joe was just saying, like where we would go across the board, like in Massachusetts, like growing up across like right on the border with New Hampshire, we would go to New Hampshire for all of our fireworks. But the difference being that even possession in Massachusetts is technically illegal. So you'd have all the state police park on the border and just like arrest people, like, I don't know, every couple of years on July 4th or whatever the fuck. And they would I don't even know. There was also like everything in Massachusetts used to be banned. And so,
just you know, like,
yeah, like, well, no, seriously, like if you go back a
only
couple
thing
generations,
that's legal
like,
here is slurs and buckles on your hats.
Yeah, and like sometimes not even the buckles.
Highly illegal buckles.
But back, yeah, fucking, you know, mass old Dave Courtney, highly illegal buckles. But no, like back in the day, banned in Boston used to be like a pretty like prevalent thing that people would say, and you know, like, you know, the censors, you know, because there was all the WASPs here, like all the Boston Brahmins who would, you know, try to censor things. And so, you know, like G.G. Allen had a banned in Boston record. And like, it used to be like a, you know, a particular mark of censorship. Like if you were banned in Boston, you were, you know, just, you know, outrageous enough that you would, you know, try to make it other places. But so for instance, for a long time, pretty much up until, I want to say I was like in middle school or something, tattoos were actually legal in Massachusetts. Like there were no tattoo studios whatsoever. Yeah, like you couldn't get a tattoo here. Like no tattoo studio in Massachusetts is older than like maybe 25 years.
That's some Utah shit.
And so as a result, you know, because I like grew up across the border, like right in Massachusetts, if you drove into like Seabrook, New Hampshire, or like Hampton Beach or whatever else, the first thing you would see across the border were New Hampshire state liquor stores, tattoo studios, and fireworks shops. And that would just be the entire, and like, shout out to Leather and Lace. That was also like the only adult store in like all of like the Seacoast for like a long period of time.
Yep.
And that was just like what you got.
Missouri and Illinois has shared this weird symbiotic relationship right around St. Louis, because everybody who lives in Missouri, like when you're out drinking and you close the bar out and then you decide to keep drinking, you have very few options. You can go to a 3 a.m. bar or you can go to the east side, because that's where the strip clubs are. And like the strip clubs that allow drinking and full nudity. You go to Missouri strip club, there's no nudity if there's alcohol. Or you have to buy alcohol and then bring it in or something. There's weird rules.
Yeah.
So Illinois, it's just like, no, come over.
It's like BYOB in a fucking strip club?
In some strip clubs I've been to, yes.
But they would like just wheel up to the titty bar with a fucking cooler on wheels.
Yeah,
that seems like a really profoundly bad idea.
Yeah,
that sounds fucking awful.
No, it's phenomenal. Man. It is. It is great.
These cans are full of vodka. You're fucked.
I mean,
I'm gonna make a scene.
Strip club beers are expensive, man. If you could just roll up with your own like 30 rack, because that is the only thing that you can bring into a strip club is a 30 rack of Busch.
God, this is just making me sad just to hear about it.
So
you only can bring Busch into the strip club.
So anyway, all the Illinois people would come over to Missouri to buy fireworks because we have no rules about explosives at all. Also, you can own a tiger here. It's weird. We got some weird rules.
Either
man.
does Nashville.
What was?
Sorry, too
What
soon.
was that?
Hey, nobody died except the suicide bomber. We can make Nashville jokes. Fuck him.
Oh, I definitely tweeted about like it being Cousin Eddie right when that first happened, and then felt really bad about it afterwards.
Shitter's full.
Shitter's full.
God damn it.
Fuck. I always wondered what happened to him.
I mean, given how Randy Quaid has gotten at this point in his life, it could have actually been him, as many people pointed
Nate,
out.
I'm going to leave
Yeah, that's
that
fair.
up to
That's actually pretty true.
Nate, I'm going to leave it up to you whether you leave that in or not. Because that's
Yeah.
that's probably too soon, but I don't know how funny you're going to find it.
And nobody died except the guy who doesn't matter. What's actually interesting is while we're on the subject of suicide bombings, a lot of people were like, because we're just talking about how Michigan is on the down low, weird as fuck. So the first suicide bombing in American history happened in Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah,
Go on.
nobody fucking talks about it. It happened at a school in a place called Bath, Michigan. Like in the
BAATH.
in the early. Yeah, I think. Yeah, the Iraqi Socialist Party of Michigan.
Hey, don't laugh.
No-
Saddam Hussein got a key to Detroit, so
He did for I believe it was donating a ton of money to a Chaldean church in Detroit. Yeah. And
yeah,
it's,
that's why why is Michigan so weird? Oh, by the way, we gave a key to the city of Detroit to a fucking Iraqi dictator.
I
Fantastic.
believe it was during the Iran-Iraq
Yes, it
War too,
was.
like while he was gassing people to death.
I mean, to be honest, I don't know that Michigan politics could be any worse if there was like a Michigan bath party. I mean,
the state GOP is like goddamn near close to the Bath Party at this point.
I mean, like let's give credit where it's due.
Yeah, there's a state rep who, bless her heart, follows me on Twitter, but also she reps my mom's area, named Mari Manoujian, and like she gets, she is a woman, but also people think she's Armenian, but people are dumb and think that she's like Middle Eastern. So like you get the unhinged, like the same people that end up in Ilhan Omar's mentions.
Yeah.
Like sending her death threats. Like I believe someone like left her mail like at her front door before. So like they exist. Like they're out there, man. I believe the guy who blew he was like a janitor at a school in Bath, Michigan, loaded up like his Model T or some shit with dynamite and brought his shotgun up to the school and blew himself up. Yeah, like Michigan is like I said, we're a sleeper candidate for the worst state in the country, and nobody's noticed so far. We're doing a good job. Like the Michigan Department of I don't know reputation is working overtime.
Michigan is a
like no,
Michigan's
we're
a swing
just like
state.
Canadians.
Well, yeah, Michigan's a swing state.
It is now.
Everybody treats it nice now. It's like, look, Trump's in charge. Everybody treats him nice because he's in charge, even though everybody secretly knows he's fucking insane. Same thing with Michigan. It's like, look, you're fun, you're nice. Can you please vote for me? Okay, get away from me now. Get away from me. Get away from me.
I think they might be treating them nice because we're suddenly a swing state, or also because we're full of people with homemade explosives.
I used to go to Michigan for family reunions up in Cadillac, Michigan.
I went camping there once. It's the whole out of nothing.
Well, they had a little cabin. It was always. I wish you could go there now, because it was all old people sitting around telling bullshit stories around a campfire like all day and like drinking and smoking. Like it's when I was 10, it was boring. Now it sounds like heaven, but it also
right.
It had a river. It was like right on the banks of a river. So and there were always people floating down the river, the Big Piney River. So we would always
just getting drunk and floating by in like boats and tubes and stuff. Yeah.
There was a bridge. There's a bridge that went over it. And so we get up on the bridge and you go throw stuff at the tubers as they came underneath. Look, don't take a kid to a campsite full of old people, man. We get bored and we're gonna go find something to do. If it's throw stuff at college students, so be it.
Yeah, that's actually when I was 10 or 9 or 10, I got arrested.
That's a Michigander story.
It gets dumber. It was by the DNR, and So for people it's the,
Why they
the
do
Department
not
of
resuscitate?
Natural Resources cops, because my stepsister and I, we had a squirt gun, and we were out camping. Just like you said, don't bring kids out to a campground full of old people, and they're going to get bored. And we stole a whole bunch of like fire sauce from a Taco Bell on our like 3-hour drive up north. And we loaded the squirt guns full of fire sauce and started spraying people's tents. And we got arrested.
So you're doing,
definitely noticed-
you were doing chemical warfare. What the fuck?
Yeah, I was doing drive-by chemical warfare.
All right. So remember, if you like that, if you want more of that, we have bonus episodes every week that come out. Some of them like that. I know I've got a couple of interviews coming out. I'm going to be talking to a Navy guy pretty soon. I'm going to be talking to an author pretty soon. Nate talks to people. So our bonus content is all over the place. So we always try to do these little extras so you can kind of get a taste of it. So patreon.com/hellofaWayToDie. Of course, you can follow me at ArmyStrang, follow Nate at In These Deserts, follow the podcast in all sorts of places. We're on Instagram, Hell of a Way to Die. We're on Twitter, Hell of a Way. We're on YouTube. Not really on TikTok because Nate and I are too old for that. But everywhere else, man, we're there. So as always, thank you for listening. And Nate, we'll talk to you next week.
Yep, have a good one.